Welcome here, ladies and gentlemen, to Ball Line 2, the search for enlightenment, and also the Power Conference College Football 2025 preview. I'm your host, JP Barry. He's Spencer Ball. We're here after
You've seen this
graduating.
before, haven't you?
Yeah. You thought that it was over.
You thought wrong.
Nothing ever truly ends. A million sequels, and we're gonna get right into it here,
Yes.
where we're gonna go through each power conference, and just kind of put the teams into a little bit of a tier list, a little bit of a ranking, if you will. Not really in any particular order once you get into those tiers, but we'll just kind of see how we can uh, mold these teams in 2025. We'll start, of course, in the ACC, and we'll go with
Well,
Boston
real quick,
College.
let
Oh,
me. I'm gonna run you through our four categories right here of or our
oh
four
yeah,
tiers. We have the teams that will struggle to make a bowl game. We have teams that you think will make a bowl game. Conference dark horses. So maybe your long shots to win the conference, and then your contenders list. So that's kind of how our four groupings going to be. Then we'll give you our conference title game picks at the end of every conference. And well, folks, we got a penchant for talking, so we probably got to get this
we
thing rolling
we
pretty quick.
well, because
Zoom
Zoom
gives
only
us a time limit.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
not Tyler isn't here to just let us drone on forever. So we kind of gotta, get a move on. We'll start here in the ACC with Boston College. Spencer, I don't think we need to really explain ourselves too much on this one. I have them in struggling to make a bowl. What about you?
I do. I mean, I think the Bill O'Brien era got honestly it was started off pretty well, and then
No,
it
yeah,
it, it
I like Bill
faltered a bit.
O'Brien, but it's
Um,
Boston College. That's
it's
my
Boston
thing.
College. They lost Castellanos, and it's it's just gonna. I think it's gonna be a tough year for them.
Yeah, so I got my Phil Steele here just in case I need to look at any schedules or something like that. Yeah, but I like the quarterback they brought in from Alabama, but it's a brutal schedule. They go on the road to Stanford, Michigan
Yeah.
State, and Pitt, and Louisville. Then they have home games against Clemson, Notre Dame, SMU, and Georgia Tech. They would have to pull off a couple upsets, I think, to get to like that usual 6-6, 7-5 range they live in. Next up,
Inevitable BC 6-6.
yeah. Next up, we got Cal, another team that I don't think we really need to spend much time on. They had a great story last year, but a brutal end. Lots of transfers as
They
Brian
got gutted from the portal,
Brian
man.
Harson. Why would you ever bring him in? And lo and behold, he's ruined the program seemingly in one off season. So I have them in struggling to make a bowl.
I do too. I mean, losing Mendoza is such a crusher, but not
And Jay
only
Knott,
I was going to say, it's like you lose your quarterback. It's like, all right, we got to find a quarterback. They basically lost all of their skill position guys around their quarterback, and replacing an entire offense is tough.
it,
And I
it
think
really is.
they're gonna struggle.
And it's a tough schedule. They have to go across the country all the time with the ACC, and so
Yeah,
we'll go from a team that's probably figuring to be fighting amongst the last spots in the conference to a team most people have winning it, the Clemson Tigers. Well, they returned almost more production than I think anyone except for maybe Arizona State in college football, and a Heisman Trophy candidate, much less potentially a favorite in Cade Klubnik at quarterback, a defense that needs no introduction. Spencer, I have Clemson as a contender in the ACC.
JP, I have them as an ACC contender, and if you asked me to pick a national title favorite right now, as a Gamecock, it hurts me, but I'd probably pick Clemson, man. I mean, I think they knocked it out of the park. They finally go to the transfer portal, bring in a
Yeah,
great class. They lose hardly anybody. That front seven is always monstrous. Peter Woods, I mean, he looks like an absolute freak, and
and they
it's
do
just
have they do have a little bit of a tough
yeah,
schedule. They go on the road to Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Louisville, and
week
South
one.
Carolina. Well, week one they host LSU, and then they
Yeah,
also host Florida State and SMU at Death Valley. But I think there's just like a decided gap between Clemson and everybody else, both in coaching, talent, at tough place
well,
to
you got to
play.
think about it.
Not
10,
even.
10-2 gets you in.
Oh yeah.
That gets you in now, and that's for better or for worse. We'll save that for another day. But
Yeah.
especially in a gauntlet of a schedule, you know that you have a little bit more wiggle room than you would in the past. But honestly, we'll see if Clemson needs it. I mean, this is a
I
good team.
I struggle to think that they will. Now after Clemson, a team that I'm very interested in, it's the Duke Blue Devils. Spencer, they had a good year last year in under Manny Diaz. It was
They
year
did.
one, went 9-4. They had a little bit of a tough end to that year with an overtime loss to SMU. I believe they also lost to Georgia Tech in a tough, close game. Then they got blown out in their bowl game, but they returned a lot of experience. They brought in Darian Mensah. Spencer, where do you have the Blue Devils in 2025?
The Blue Devils are a dark horse for me. I mean, very promising. I think they're honestly closer to the contender tier than some people realize because I think they kind of upgraded at quarterback. You had a
Oh,
freshman,
definitely.
Darian Mensah, who was really excellent. I mean, Malik Murphy was great for the Blue Devils. He moves on to Oregon State, who I might talk about later as one of my favorite group of five teams. But I mean, you look at Mensah coming into the system under a Manny Diaz defense. I really like what they've got cooking.
I do too. I also have them as a conference dark horse. They return a lot of experience on
Great point.
defense, great transfer portal class. They have a schedule that's a little bit easier than some of their contemporaries in the ACC, although they do have to go to Clemson and a couple of tough road games, including one against Darian Mintz's former team over in Tulane. But I'm a big fan of the Blue Devils. And then going from Duke, who had a really surprising 2024, another team who was very surprising in 2024, but for all the wrong reasons, the Florida State Seminoles.
I think this is one of the hardest teams to rank in the ACC because you go from, not losing a regular season game to about losing all of them in
And it wasn't
the
even most
flip
of them
of a
weren't even
switch.
close.
I've got Florida State as a bowl team. I think they're going
Yeah.
to find more of a median this year. Again, they bring over Thomas Castellanos, who we talked about earlier.
He's an
Some people
interesting
are
he's an
higher
interesting
on Florida
guy.
State. He is. Um, I think this is going to be kind of a return to normalcy. I could see maybe a 7-8 win season for them. Make a bowl game, build some momentum for the future because they have a lot of good young talent. But I would struggle to see them really punching above that.
Well, we're going to know early because they host Alabama in 2 weeks in week one, and a new and improved Doak Campbell Stadium, which is pretty cool. You saw all
Very
the
cool.
renovations they did over there, but yeah, I'm not exactly. I don't think that they're really a big contender in the ACC, but like you said, I think they're going to make a bowl game. The schedule it kind of softens up. They do have Florida, of course, who people are high on, but to bookend the year with Alabama and Florida. But between then, I think they'll get to 6, 7 wins pretty easy. Then another team in the ACC. The ACC is full of intriguing squads. I think none more so than Georgia Tech. Spencer, where do you think the Yellow Jackets are going to line
This
up
is
this year?
this is one I was licking my chops to get to. Georgia Tech is an ACC contender. I think I'm such a
Yep.
Brent Key head. I'm
Yep.
like, man, that guy's awesome.
That
Just
guy
what a leader
rules.
he is. I mean, you bring back a ton of production. You bring in Eric Rivers from FIU, who I really like. I mean, they've got a lot of skill position guys that either come back or come into this program, and you could just see how hard this team fights. They play well against ranked opponents. And JP, I mean, the ACC outside of Clemson, I think it's more for the taking than it has been.
Oh, definitely. I think that, one is pretty set in stone, and then two through about seven could be anyone. But I
Anybody.
think Georgia Tech, a contender as well. I mean, if they had ran the ball in overtime against Georgia or even ran
Yep.
the ball late in the fourth quarter, last season could have been infinitely different for a myriad of reasons. But I think that it's going to be a good year for the Yellow Jackets. They do have a schedule that sets up well. They don't play Louisville, Miami, or SMU, and they get Clemson at home. So I'm big on Georgia Tech this year. Now moving on in the ACC, the Louisville Cardinals. If you thought I was big on Georgia Tech, I am huge on Louisville. I have them as a dark horse in the conference, not a contender, because they do have a bunch, some question marks on the defensive end of things. But man, their offense is explosive. They bring back their top three rushers, including Isaac Brown, who's one of the best running backs in college football, Chris Bell and Colin Lacey out wide. I think Miller Moss is the quintessential Jeff Brom quarterback, and they have a great schedule with a lot of games against teams that are going to be in the similar spots as them, like that top 20, top 25 range, and they get Clemson at home. So I'm big on Louisville as a
I
conference
thought
star.
I thought you were going to have them in that contender tier, but we agree once again. I have them as a dark horse. Again, I just want to see Miller Moss pan out a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
that and I think the defense it
yeah,
has enough questions in the back end of things to where like if you got into a shootout with a Miami or a Georgia Tech or even an SMU, it's like, well, how is it? They do have to go on the road to Miami, and I believe they also play. Georgia Tech and SMU. They don't miss anybody in conference play, which is what kind of held them back from being a contender, as
Yeah.
weird as that is to say.
I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. Maybe one of the most fun in the conference. I mean, this offense really should be clicking. Miller Moss, I mean, kind of a gunslinger, a rare archetype in today's game, but he'll just stand back there and throw the ball 40 times. And, you know, to me, JP, that's fun football. I don't know
Oh
if
yeah.
it's going to translate to a 10-win football team, but that 7-9 range, I could see it all day.
And our next team in the ACC, it's going to be the Miami Hurricanes, a team that started last year by I believe 8-0, top 5 in the country. Then they lost to Georgia Tech, and things kind of took a little bit of this turn for the worse. And they finished 10-3, lose Cam Ward to the draft, but they brought in Carson Beck. They bring back a lot of guys on defense and in the trenches. And so I have Miami as a contender, but man, they have a tough schedule.
So I've got Miami as a dark horse team, and as like a brand, of course, Miami is a higher level team. JP, I'm not a Carson Beck fan, and I
No, I'm
never
not
have
either.
been. Um, I just struggle to see him. I don't know if he has what it takes to get it done. I
Outside,
would if
like
this was Cam
from
Ward coming back.
Georgia. Oh, if they had
I
Cam Ward,
mean,
they'd probably be a national title favorite almost somehow.
easily,
Um,
easily, but like there is a lot of talent on this squad. I think Mario Cristobal is an infamous choker, especially in the month of November when the going gets tough. Miami and his teams have crumpled in the past, and that's kind of that's what history tells us, and they're going to have to prove it to me that that won't happen again.
and they're going to have plenty of opportunities to prove it because they have a tough schedule. They have
They do.
home games against Notre Dame, Louisville, and Florida, and then on the road they take on SMU, Florida State, and Pitt. And so it's a Miami schedule that is open for lots of opportunities. And now we'll move on to a little bit of a lull in the ACC with NC State. There's just not much to speak on here with Dave Doeren in year 14, I believe. They return a
You
lot of
could have said
guys,
year 40, and I've been like, oh yeah,
and
go ahead.
CJ Bailey is back, but it's a tough schedule, and I just have them as a bowl team. I don't think they just don't have it this year to rise above some of the rest. I think.
They don't have it. It's
Yeah.
they don't have anything that makes me say like, wow, that's really something to look for. I mean, hopefully Bailey will take some steps. Um, I think this is a classic like 6, 7, maybe 8-win team at
Yeah,
its
I mean they
peak.
could upset someone. They go on the
They
road to
could.
Notre Dame, Pitt, and Miami. I mean, if you can win one of those games, you kind of change the landscape of either college football or the conference race. So, I mean, they're not without their opportunities, but I do like CJ Bailey. I'm interested to see how he goes from a freshman to a sophomore, and so we'll see what he does there. But it's just not a lot, not a
I
lot in the
think they're
tank for
laying the
NC State.
groundwork for the future
Yeah,
this year.
and then
Yeah.
a team that is very similar in that they're trying to lay the groundwork, but very differently in the amount of coverage they've gotten. It's the North Carolina Tar Heels with Bill Belichick. I still just have them as just a bowl team. I think, Belichick is awesome. They brought in a lot of transfers. They do have a manageable schedule. And it's just a lot to have happen in year one.
So I totally agree with you, but I have UNC as a dark horse, and the reason why you mentioned it, they probably have the easiest schedule in the ACC. I
It
mean,
is
it is
absurd.
really easy. You
If I
look
can
at it,
find it, they avoid
they
most of
open the year with TCU, and that's kind of your big non-conference game. You got to go in there, you got to win that. Then, I mean, shout out to my dad. They go on the road to Charlotte, which is like awesome for Charlotte. Like they get to host UNC. What an absolute crazy game that's going to be. But they get Clemson at home. Outside of that, their toughest game is probably Syracuse on the road, but you get Duke at home as well. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it is a very, very. The only thing
I
that
don't
could
know what the
really,
football is going to look like, but the
no,
schedule is really easy.
it is absurd. Phil Steele has it as number 67 in the country, and they do. It is a very traditional end of the year where they go to Wake, then host Duke, then to NC State. But I mean, I think it's entirely possible they go 3-0 there. They could also go 1-2. I don't think they'll lose to Wake.
100%.
Wake is unfortunate this season, but we'll move on now to Pitt, a team that started last year 7-0, turned a lot of heads. I know a lot of the heads had to look the other way as they went 0-6 to end with a lot of injuries. But despite all that, I have them as an ACC dark horse because they bring back almost everybody, including their quarterback Eli Holstein.
Yeah, Holstein was really fun to watch. I personally have them as just a bowl team. kind of because of that collapse.
Yeah, it's hard to
It's one of
believe it's
those
Pat
things.
Narduzzi.
Unfortunately, it is. It's one of those teams where if they make a run for the title, I think it'd be awesome. I'd be sitting there just cheering them on because it's a fun team to watch when they're healthy. But
Yeah,
kind of that
great
it's that
uniforms,
question
great
mark.
color scheme. I mean, Holstein is a really fun quarterback. You know,
Yeah.
they play Louisville, Notre Dame, Miami at home. They go on the road to Georgia Tech and Florida State, but no Clemson, who was the team that kind of started that collapse, I believe, last year. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of build off of which version of Pitt do they build off of? Is it the one that finished 0-6
Yep.
or the one that started 7-0? We'll see. But another team that had a great year last year and actually sustained it was the SMU Mustangs as they went to the college football playoff. And I have them as an ACC contender just kind of because they have Kevin Jennings back. They lose 14 starters from last year's team, but the schedule sets up nicely. They get Miami and Louisville at home. I like Rhett Lashley a lot. I like Kevin Jennings. I just think that if you made the ACC title game last year, they can do it again.
I mean, I could literally just say I agree with all of that. It's exactly what I was going to say. Kevin Jennings comes back. I think he's electrifying. I think that CFP game was really unfortunate for him.
Yeah.
Really, by a long shot, his worst performance of the year. But I think he's really good. I think again, I'm a big Red Lashley guy, so I think he's somebody who could kind of roll with the punches. You lose a bunch of starters, but you proved to everybody that you can build this program into a powerhouse. You made the playoff when nobody expected. Why couldn't they do it again? I think they got a shot.
Yeah, and now we'll kind of run through the bottom of the alphabetical order of the ACC because it's also likely going to look like the bottom of the standings. Stanford, 4 straight 3-9 seasons coming into this one. They lose their head coach midway through the offseason due to some behind the scenes turmoil. Frank Reich is the interim coach. A lot of transfer portal out, not a lot coming in.
Yeah,
They're going to struggle to make a bowl. I think
it's
that's
it's
putting it
them
lightly.
versus. Yeah, they're going to struggle to win 2 games. I mean, it's tough, and especially as Panther fans, the Frank Reich experiment went.
Horrifically wrong.
Yeah, yeah, so that we don't get banned on YouTube. It went poorly, if you want to put that in
uh,
layman's terms. It went bad.
yeah,
So
so
I'm not a fan of what they got going on.
there is a shining light in this bottom of the ACC alphabetical order. Those the Syracuse Orange under year one under Fran Brown, they went 10-3, bring in a lot of transfers to build off of that, including their new starting quarterback they just announced
Steve
today, Steve
Angeli.
Angeli. But Syracuse, they're a team that it's a tough schedule, and it's just not a lot of depth in their talent. They do have a decent amount of talent, but the schedule is just too tough. I have them as just a bowl team.
I have them as a dark horse, but purely for that upswing, that Fran Brown magic we saw a bit of
Yeah,
last year. Do I necessarily think they're going to contend for the title? No, but I mean, in year one, you have a success like that. Makes you want to believe, makes you want to buy in a little bit. And I think Steve Angeli can sling the pigskin a little bit.
he
So
can indeed, and he might be doing it to Texas's wideout transfer, Jonte Cook, and they have a schedule. You're going to be seeing a lot of Syracuse this year, I imagine, as they have a schedule that has 4 playoff teams from last year and road trips to Georgia Tech and Miami. So
you see
I never
that's the part where you go a little.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I never
yeah,
thought
yeah.
that Syracuse football would be kind of a headline raiser like this. Like it's like, wow, all right, all right. And so now we get to Virginia. You know, I think it's do or die for Tony Elliott. I do have them as a bold team, just barely, and it's only because they have a schedule where if they don't start 5-0, they should fire Tony Elliott immediately. It's a very easy schedule, and after that, all you need to do is win one game to make a bowl. I think they could definitely do that. So that's why I have them as a bowl team instead of
Yeah,
struggling to
Virginia
make a bowl.
screams 6 or 7 wins to me.
Yeah. Which, hey,
That's
good for them. They
good
deserve
for
it.
them.
It's
Yeah,
been a
I
while.
could see it. I could see it. Nothing
And
much
then
more to be said.
a lot of similar things here with Virginia Tech is Brent Pry, also in a do or die year.
Oh,
Last
that
year they
seat
had
is scalding hot, man. He's
all
been on the
last
hot seat
year, they had all
forever.
that hype coming into it, and they fell on their face against Vanderbilt, a Vanderbilt team that it wasn't as bad of a loss as it seemed at the time, but they just never really recovered. And they are looking to him to kind of get it in gear or else over in Blacksburg. It's an easy schedule. I have them as a bowl team, And I think that might be just enough to keep his job safe.
It depends on what, the higher ups in the board is expecting out of him. I also have them as a bold team. I don't think you can expect too much. I mean, Drones is awesome, but is he going to stay healthy? Whenever he was hurt last year, that's when things
Oh,
got bad for VT. And that's if that happens again, you can kiss it goodbye. I mean, but I do think if he stays healthy, they'll make a bowl game.
and our last team in the ACC, it's going to be Wake Forest. I think they struggled to make a bowl after losing Dave Clawson. It's going to be a tough run of things. And I don't really think there's a lot much else we can say about Wake
Yeah,
Forest. There's too
and
many
JP,
teams in these conferences. But because
we're
like
really trying to crunch this down.
yeah, well, there's just too many teams in the conferences, and so we're going to move on to the Big Ten. Well, not yet. We got to give our conference title game prediction. I have Clemson versus Louisville. What about you, Spencer?
I'm going to take Clemson and GT here. I mean, I'm big on the Jackets. I want to see them get
I
there.
am
I
too.
think it would just be awesome. Um,
I
but
think it's
yeah,
between
that's what I
Louisville.
got.
For me, it was between Louisville and Georgia Tech, not Louisville and Miami or something like that. I think
I
that
think it's those two, and then SMU for me.
yeah.
I would say for me, it's Georgia Tech, SMU. Those would be my other two.
And so we'll move on now to the Big Ten, where we'll start with the Fighting Illini of Illinois. I have them as a dark horse. It's a beaten horse at this point, but they do return a lot. They're number 12 in the rankings, so are they even really a dark horse at this point?
I have them as a contender. I think the Big Ten is more open than it has been in recent years, especially to me. There's not a ton of consistent quarterback play in this conference. And I think Luke Altmaier, well, personally, I don't think he's the best quarterback. I think he's been known to struggle against some of the premier defenses in the league. Again, JP in this conference right now, you don't necessarily you could drop a game to Penn State. You could lose to Ohio State. Where does that put you? The glorious record of 10-2. And that's
Exactly.
the future I see for Illinois.
And kind of similarly, the next team in the Big Ten is the Indiana Hoosiers. I also have them as a conference dark horse because I can't really call them a contender yet because they still kind of lack a lot of the talent depth, and their schedule is a little bit tougher in the conference this year, I believe. Their non-conference is very silly, but I don't
Yeah.
know if they have it yet to get over the hump. But I do think maybe they improved at places like the quarterback position.
Yeah, I love Mendoza from Cal. I think he's a really good quarterback. You're able to dodge Ohio State, which is big. The big thing, you got to go on the road to Oregon. You got to go
Yeah,
on the road to Happy Valley. And to me, that reeks of 0-2. And that puts yourself in a little bit of a hole because it means you got to kind of be perfect the rest of the way, or you pull one of those big upsets if you want to make the playoff again. I think I also have them as a dark horse. I could see it again. I got to give a little faith to Signetti after his great work last year, but you want to see a little bit more consistency on a program level.
exactly. And speaking of consistency, no one is more consistently 7-5 than our next team, the Iowa Hawkeyes, who I have as a solid bowl team. Although they did actually bring in a nice quarterback transfer, but I just until proven otherwise, man.
I have them as a dark horse, but they were really teetering on that line for me. I do like Is it Gronkowski or Gronowski? I can't.
I'm not sure. I'm not
Starts with
sure.
a G. It's Mark G, I think.
Yeah, we'll go with that. We
Severance.
know him
It's
like
Mark
that.
G. Yeah. Um. Again, the offense has never been it for Iowa. I just wonder if they've done enough to kind of maybe squeak by with their stellar defense. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those
Maybe.
where time will tell, but I could see them, maybe hanging around just because to me this conference is much weaker than it was last year.
Yeah, and speaking of one of those weaker teams, it's the Maryland Terrapins, who I think are going to struggle to make a bowl under Mike Locksley. They had some ups and downs last year, but I think we might be entering a little bit of a bottoming out period for this program.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
just
we
not a
might have
lot
to
here for
pour
me.
one out for Mike Locke. I
Yeah,
think it's over for him, buddy.
yeah. Well, we'll just go ahead and move on over to Michigan State, who I was kind of flipping and flopping on, but they bring a lot of people back. I like Aiden Childs. I like their head coach. I like what they're doing, and I'll have them as a solid bowl team in 2025.
Couldn't agree more. I really like the direction they're headed, and I think that's good for them. You don't have to shock the world. Change often doesn't happen in one year. We've seen it go that way before, especially with like the Indianas of the world. But I wouldn't predict that much. But I think they just keep getting a little better every year. I'd love to
Totally.
see them beat Michigan for
And yeah,
football don't lie reasons.
our next team, the Michigan Wolverines, who boast the easiest schedule in the Big Ten. They avoid Oregon, they avoid Penn State, they get Ohio State at home, who they've beaten. What is it, 5 straight years now, 4 or 5?
4 or 5, yeah.
And I think Michigan's a dark horse. I almost put them as a contender. I really almost did because while they have a bunch of unknowns, like how good is Bryce Underwood going to be, I think there's a base level floor there that's just going to be really hard to go under. And I think if they don't go 9-3 or 10-2, something horrible has happened.
And I think they're going to have the defense to keep them in a ton of games. And as you mentioned, really dodged a bullet in the scheduling. I think it'd be really difficult for them not to at least fight for the top of the conference.
Totally. Our next Big Ten team, another model of consistency in the 7-5 department. It's PJ Fleck in Minnesota.
Yep.
I have them as a bowl team. They are one of the true constants in life. There's death, there's taxes, and then there's PJ Fleck getting to a bowl game. And frankly, at a place like Minnesota, you're gonna win you're gonna make
You'll
yourself
get
a
one
lot
more.
of money there. Yeah, you're gonna make yourself a lot of money
Yeah.
there. And I
Collecting
just
random trophies.
exactly. If you
Yeah.
beat Wisconsin pretty consistently, you become God amongst those people. So there's nothing wrong with that. I
It's
think that
true.
they're
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have anything else to say. I think Minnesota they're such a 7-5 team. Um,
not even close. You know
Upside
what
of
I mean?
8 or 9 wins, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll move on to Nebraska, a team that finally broke through and made a bowl game last year under Matt Rule. And they do have Dylan Raiola and some nice talented pieces. They lost a couple guys to the portal, but then they brought some more in. That's just kind of the story of college football at this point. I have them as a bowl team. I almost put them as a dark horse, but I think that there's just enough there to hold them back and be just a 7-5, 8-4 type.
I was debating between them and Iowa as a dark horse. I went with Iowa because I think their defense is a little more
Yeah.
consistent than maybe what Nebraska has to offer. I do like Rayola, but you got to remember he's so young. They've
Yeah.
got a little bit. You got more time. Keep recruiting well, and that's something Nebraska can do with their big money. So I think if they make a bowl game, win 7 or 8 games, that'd be a step in the right direction for them.
Almost certainly. And then now we'll move on to a team that is going to struggle to make a bowl just by the nature of things. One of the greatest victims of conference realignment, it's Northwestern. I think that they're going to, I don't, there's just not much. It's unfortunate. That's life.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that is the way it is.
And we'll move on now to a team that very opposite ends of the spectrum, but there's not much to really say. It's Ohio State. They're a contender. They're going to be a contender. They're just Ohio State.
They're going to be a contender probably forever. So get ready
the
for
worst
it.
season in the last 50 years for them was when they went 6-6 in 2011. Can you imagine that? Your year of total evil darkness is 6-6.
South Carolina went 6-6 with Zeb Noland at quarterback, and Ohio State they would never have understood that.
No,
Just know
they would have.
that.
But if Ryan Day loses to Michigan again, then last time I saw his address on Twitter about 5 seconds
Dude,
after the game.
they might just fire him for no reason.
They almost
It
did.
could happen. It could happen.
Oh my God, they almost did. It would have been glorious. But
I'm seeing the time limit on Zoom, and we're not through
yeah,
our second conference. This might be a two-parter.
There's too many teams in these conferences. But we'll go through the rest of the Big Ten here as quickly as we can. Another contender is the Oregon Ducks. Yeah. Dante Moore, Ducks. Although I think that's a big question mark. How is Dante Moore going to do? The rest of the team is just so good and talented. I failed to see a reality where Oregon is not contending for the Big Ten championship.
I almost wanted to put them like they're a contending team, but I do agree with the question marks part of it. I don't think they're near as good as they were last year or the year before that. So I think that's where you're gonna, maybe Dante Moore comes out and is just awesome. He could be, but he also may not be. He
might be some
not
growing pains. There's not a lot on the schedule early, so he might be able to ease his way in. But we'll learn a lot when they travel to Happy Valley and take on Penn State. And what is almost a
every team that goes there learns a lot.
Yeah, it'll be. And speaking of Penn State, they're next up in the alphabet. obviously a contender. Lots of people
Yeah.
pegging them as a national title favorite. They fit the profile of the last two national title winners. Senior quarterback, lots of talent, uh, getting over the hump. And I mean, as much as I don't agree with Drew Aller hype, as much as I don't agree with James Franklin hype, I think the rest of this team is pretty darn good.
The rest of the team has never been the problem at Penn
Yeah,
State. The entire question mark about Penn State, can James Franklin get over the hump? And will Drew Aller, does he have it in him? We
we
haven't seen
won't
it.
we won't
We
know
haven't seen
until
it.
they play.
Yeah.
And frankly, they don't. We won't know for a little bit because I don't think they play anyone until Oregon comes to town. So
But
that's going to be a
it's,
great learning experiment.
it will be. But I mean, like, I still, we've talked about it on Bald Online One. Um, I've never understood the Drew Aller number one overall draft hype. I hate that. I
Yeah.
hate the whole like, wow, he's tall and strong. He should probably be the
Sometimes
best
he makes
quarterback
deep.
ever.
Sometimes he drops back and throws 45-yard
He throw
touchdowns against
far.
Bowling Green.
Yeah,
Sometimes he throws, but sometimes he
yeah.
goes an entire bowl game without throwing a pass to a wide receiver, and that's what happened in the Orange Bowl when they lost. Wait, hold on.
Who'd
I
they
do
lose to?
believe, I do believe I'm wearing the shirt of that game.
But
So, but Penn State a contender. We would be foolhardy
contender, it's
to
just
pretend otherwise.
it's just
But
a big time question mark. Because JP, if there was ever a year for Penn State, you gotta think it's this year. I mean,
yeah,
Ohio State is not as good. Oregon's not as good. I think if you look around at the entire list of contenders, is there a team coming back that's as good except for Clemson? I wouldn't say so. I
I
think
don't
those are
think
the top
so.
two in
Yeah,
terms of returning talent.
and that ends the ranked teams in the Big Ten. We'll move to Rutgers, who under Greg Schiano.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, excuse me. No, actually, Purdue. Purdue is next. I skipped over them. We're going to create a new tier called Purdue, and that's where we're going to put Purdue because they are horrible. Maybe one of they give old school Rutgers a run for their money
I
when
mean,
it
you talk
comes to
about the difficulty of that Purdue rebuild. I mean, it's basically going directly upwards. Like you have to turn the ship. If you win one game, I mean, do you consider an improvement? You win a Big Ten game. You
Oh,
win two.
definitely. They went 1-11 last year. They were losing. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois, and then the next week beat Purdue 62-7. How is that even possible? But it was. It was
Put
possible. And
Northern Illinois in the Big Ten. That's what we're
I mean,
doing.
frankly, but anyway, now
Yeah.
Rutgers. I think that they'll be a team that kind of struggles to make a bowl. It's just the reality, man. They have a tough schedule, and they're just dealing with a lot, which is being Rutgers. It's just not their fault, but someone has to go five and
Exactly.
seven or four and
Someone's
eight
got to
or maybe
lose.
six. Yeah,
Someone's got
and
to
that's
lose all these games that the other teams are winning, and Rutgers is one of those teams. As stupid as that sounds.
yeah. And meanwhile, a couple teams that shouldn't be in the Big Ten. We'll start with UCLA. I kind of like UCLA a
I
little
kind of
bit.
like
I
them.
I have them as a bowl team. They ended last year on a nice little heater. Deshaun Foster, he's kind of one of those coaches that was built for this era of college football, where it's less about X's and O's and it's more about just how much can you get your players to like you and play hard for you. And he's great at that. And
Jimmy's
so
and Joe's, man.
and
Name of
so
the game.
I have them as a bowl team. I don't think it'll be anything special, but I think it'll be better than what UCLA has been.
I have them as a dark horse purely on that potential. I mean, you talk about you bring in Nico Imaleva. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at pronouncing that one. But a bit of a late addition, but you bring him in nonetheless, and you bring in a lot of talent around him. Again, there's so many new parts to this team. That's almost where it's like, heck, they could come together and win 9 games. You never know. It's
Yeah, and it's a schedule that kind of plays out nicely, and that's how I feel about this next team, Southern Cal, who I have as a dark horse, as much as I don't want to, but I think Jaden Mayava, I mean, obviously Southern Cal's always going to have great receivers. I think they kind of have a lot going for them this year. They avoid Ohio State, they get Michigan at home, they avoid Penn State. They go on the road to Oregon, but that makes sense. That should happen. I think that they can contend for an appearance in the Big Ten title game, Spencer.
I could see it. I have them as a bowl team just because I'm not a Lincoln Riley fan, and I
Yeah,
think
I mean,
the big game eludes him horribly. So I
don't
expect
I?
them to blow a tire or two on the way.
Well, they might run into a little bit of a blue and gold brick wall midway through the year when they go up to South Bend in a
Whatever
game that
happened
could
there?
could be the final rendition of the Notre Dame Southern Cal rivalry for the
And
foreseeable future.
we
We
don't
can't.
have time to
We
get
don't
into
have time to get into that. We
that.
cannot do it. We cannot, at least on this
No.
Zoom call.
So
But
we can't do much else except for talk
no,
about our next team.
the Washington Huskies. I think that they're building a little bit. I have them as a bowl team. Not a lot there that's going to jump off the page at you. They're going to be fine. They're going to be completely fine, and that's really all. That I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
And while I do agree that they're building something, I have them as a dark horse team. I really like what they did towards the end of last year. They were really struggling to kind of find their identity, find who their quarterback was going to be, and they found it. Damon Williams emerged as that starter. He's a great athlete. He can make it happen with his legs. He's got a really underrated arm. And JP, I could just see things falling right for the Huskies. They get a lot of those important Big Ten games at home, and that is
Including
a
Ohio
tough
State.
place to play. We
That
saw
could
that
be.
place get rocking just 2 years ago.
Yep.
I think for the one time, the Dubs up
Yep.
once again, baby.
And so our final Big Ten squad is going to be Luke Fickell's Wisconsin Badgers, and what is almost assuredly a do or die year for him. They almost have to get something going, or else it's going to look like. I mean, what happened to him after how good he looked at Cincinnati? They do get Ohio State at home.
Yeah.
They avoid Penn State, but road games against Oregon and Michigan and Indiana. I have them as a bowl team just barely. I think they lost a decent bit in the transfer portal. I'm interested to see what they do this year.
JP, we've got less than a minute left on
Yeah,
this call. Just to wrap up the Big Ten, I have them on the other side of that coin, just missing a bowl game. I don't think the Fickle era has worked out. It doesn't seem to be a great fit. JP, are we going to go call number 2, go Big 12 SEC?
I do think we'll do that. So, quick intermission here as we change Zoom calls. We'll be right back. All right.
Recording in progress. Whatever happened there?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back here with Ball Don't Like 2, the search for enlightenment and the 2025 Power Conference College Football Preview. I'm JP Barry. He's Spencer Ball. We spent a lot of time on the ACC and the Big Ten, and we're about to spend a lot of more time on the Big 12. But real quick, we didn't even give our conference title picks for the Big
Yeah,
Ten.
let's do that real quick.
I have Penn State versus Michigan. I think Michigan goes 11-1. I don't know where the loss comes. It's either Ohio State or Oregon or somewhere in there. But not Oregon. They don't play Oregon, I don't think, right? Am I losing it? Am I already losing my mind in
I
episode
don't think
one?
they do play Oregon. We
They
talked
do
about
not play
they don't
Oregon.
play Oregon.
So I think Michigan goes 11-1, and I think they're kind of the talk of the college football world, and it'll be fun. But
yeah,
not for people who enjoy the rule of law. Because how did they get that?
Whatever. And we won't hash it all the way out.
We can't. We can't.
The great stallionsing just happened. Their punishment for
Uh,
that. I mean, I hope they revoke that title so bad. I mean, more than anything, that would be like that would just make me so happy because those guys were cheating big time. But my Big Ten title pick, Penn State, Ohio State. It's boring. But I think Ohio State probably has the best player in the country, at least that's not a quarterback. Jeremiah Smith is so special. And if they have a quarterback with a functional arm, they will win football games because they can get him the ball. So
that's going to do it for the Big Ten. We're going to head now.
It's that simple.
Where, I mean, really, this was the hardest conference for me because so many, like 1 through 10. Well, maybe not 1 through 10, but like you could randomly generate any order in the Big 12 and it would make sense. You could explain it. It is one of the more
that way a little bit more about the SEC, at least than I have in a long time.
Yeah, I think that's true. Also, I think there's a lack of a definite like the one in the SEC, but the Big 12 it lacks a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. It's got a lot of 5s running around. But
Yep.
we'll start off with the team that won it all last year in this conference is the Arizona State Sun Devils. Spencer, we mentioned them when we talked about top teams and returning production. I think they're a definite contender in the Big 12, if not the
Without a
favorite
doubt.
to repeat. I mean, Sam Levitt, awesome. Kenny Dillingham, awesome. They lose Scatterbo to the New York Football Giants, but
Eli
they
Manning
bring
up
back
there.
a lot. And I think that they're a fine team in 2025.
I think they're a really good team. And more than anything, I love the way that they're coached. And I think that is one of the most underrated things about a team. The way they're coached. A coach tells you a lot about a team. Arizona State's they're fun, they're gritty, they're hard nosed. They get back up after they get knocked down. And I think if anything, going to the college football playoff has shown this team a lot because they're so young. They're going to learn so much from that experience and come back better. And frankly, JP, I think they probably get there again.
I do too. I'm a big fan of Arizona State. They start out number 11 in the polls, so if they can just stay right there, they'll be in
That
position.
plays.
Yeah, they'll be in position. Then a team very differently in their outlook on this year. It's the Arizona Wildcats. Spencer, I think they struggled to make a bowl. There's just not much going on here for Arizona, I fear. They
And it
lost
really
10.
sucks to say.
It does, because they for a little bit there it looked like they had something.
Yep.
Now they really don't. Now
And
they really don't.
I'm not a big fan of their head coach. His name is slipping me. I liked Jed Fish a lot. And unfortunately, he left last year. You were like, well, they kept Fafita and Tech. What can they do? And they had you know, a big
Jonathan,
connection in their first 4 games. And outside of that,
no,
it wasn't
that's
great.
the Cardinals.
Fafita
Much
comes
different.
back, but it's him in a dream. And Jonathan Gannon is the Cardinals head coach.
Yeah,
That's
I'm seeing.
correct.
Uh, God,
Is
it's
it
hard to find.
is it
Brent,
Brooks?
some
Brennan.
guy.
I knew it was B. Yeah.
Who are you, Brent Brennan? It would
You
seem.
probably won't know him for long.
Okay, he was a San Jose State coach, so we're going to close that out there and move on. Oh, okay, that
Whatever
explains a
happened?
lot. The BYU Cougars are a team that probably would have been a contender a couple weeks ago. Poor Jeremy Ratsliff did something very bad that we're not going to discuss on the
He
internet.
gets one of these. He gets two from me.
Big doom. Boom.
Yeah, throw some handcuffs in that mix too. I mean,
And
that's bad. Yeah,
they'll still be a bowl team, I think, but not a contender for the Big 12 and not a contender for the playoff like they were a year ago.
and just on a team level, it stinks to lose your quarterback like a month before the season starts. You know that I'm sure that really put everybody into a scramble. But I don't really feel that bad for BYU. I think they make a bowl game, but
They'll be
that's
fine.
about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a
Um,
supporter of the other team in the Holy War rivalry. Much
that's
more of
true.
a Utes
And
guy myself. We'll get to them.
we'll get to them. That's a team that some
Yeah.
people are very high on. We'll move on to the Baylor Bears, a team that Phil Steele has number one in the Big 12. They return a ton of production. They start the year off with Auburn, and I'm a big fan of Baylor. I have them as a conference dark horse in the Big 12.
JP, you took the words out of my mouth. Last year, they went on a run to save Aranda's job there.
That
And
is one of the craziest things that happened in college football last
and
year.
I really Aranda, excuse me. But I got him confused with Jonathan Aranda there. But I think I think I think they got a shot, man. It's a really good team, and I think a lot of the questions just how consistent will their QB play be? If they get that down, good things could happen.
I think so too. I mean, there could be like 12 teams in the dark horse tab in the Big 12. And
Yeah,
our next team up,
this is
probably,
one where we talked about earlier. This is where I have my fewest contenders and fewest teams missing a bowl game, but those middle two tiers are just jam packed.
yeah, I have a couple more teams missing a bowl or struggling to make a bowl just because I think
No, you're right. I
there's
do
going to be
now
a
that I look
lot of
at it.
6-6 or like teetering on the brink of 5-7 and
Yeah,
4-8. But yeah, so our next team is the Cincinnati Bearcats, one of those teams that has struggled in the transition from the American to the Big 12. I have them as making a bowl. It's Satterfield's most talented team by far. Schedule's pretty nice. I think they'll make a bowl pretty solidly.
I have them making a bowl game as well. I mean, I think they have to if Satterfield keeps his job. Um, it screams like 6-6, 7 wins
Oh,
maybe. You
yeah,
hope
we're
for
yeah,
like a cool upset to give your team some fire. Um, I don't expect a ton.
totally. I agree,
Yeah,
1,000%. Not much to talk about. A team that people can't get enough of, the Colorado Buffaloes, lose Travis Hunter, lose Shadur. Thankfully for their defense, they lose Shiloh, but they don't lose Dion. Dion's sticking around after his kids depart, which I think a lot of
I'm
people
glad
thought.
he's
I am
cancer
too.
free now
Oh,
though.
also
That's
that. Yeah, that was also.
I mean I meant this. I said that in a way that was weird for their off season. You know, like he
Oh
was
yeah,
away from the team for a while, and kind of everybody was like, "Oh, no, are you okay?" And he's back, I guess. You know, so
I have them as a bowl
JP,
team.
I've got a yeah, both team.
Yeah, I mean they're solid. Caden Salters will probably be fun for them, but I just don't know if they really have it on defense or anywhere else to
Yeah,
make a serious run for the Big 12 title. Another team that struggled in the transition from Group of Five to the Power Conference is Houston, who I have as struggling to make a bowl because, man, Dana Holgerson, I'm not sure what you're doing there. If you're still there, I just realized I
I
have no.
looked it up earlier. I think he is gone. I think Dana Holgerson is gone.
Oh
Um,
yeah, he's the offensive coordinator in Nebraska. So my bad, Houston.
well, goodbye,
Well,
Scott Satterfield. I didn't realize that. So maybe that's good for Nebraska.
oh
But
yeah,
I've got Houston is also struggling to make a bowl game. They get Connor Wegman, who I think is interesting. JP, if Houston was
they're an
still group of
interesting
five,
team. Oh
if
yeah,
Houston
they
was
would
still
be.
group of five, you get Connor Wegman and you're like, oh my God, we have a guy that is probably the best arm in the American Conference. In the Big 12, still a solid talent. It's just can they put it all together? I don't think so right now, but you know, they're under a new regime. Let's see how it pans out.
Absolutely. And then one of the few teams that I think everyone is agreeing is a contender in the Big 12 is Iowa State, who I have as a contender. I think that Rocco Becht is awesome. Matt Campbell is awesome. I'm so excited for their week 0 tilt against Kansas State over in the Emerald Isle, which means I need to edit this quickly so it can be timely. Um,
Truth.
but
That's your
that,
job.
um, but
Tyler, you want to edit this?
anyway, Iowa State's a contender.
I so weirdly enough, I have them as a dark horse. I was telling you I don't have many contenders in this conference. They had a good team last year. I, I'm not sold. I'm not sold. The Matt
Interesting.
Campbell era has been up and down. It looked like it was going. You're like, wow, this guy might take an NFL job. And then they had that year where just everything went wrong, and you're like, well, he might get fired. And he's kind of right. He's steadied the ship a little bit. I by no means. I maybe should have them in the contender tier just because I don't think this is the strongest of conferences. Um,
Yeah.
but I kind of have them in that same spot they were last year in that 9 8 9 win range. You definitely have a potential to go get 10, but I think this is a team that they could see some upsets along the way. And I like Iowa State. I would love to see them uh, kind of make that run into the title game again, maybe even win the thing. But they lost their two best wide receivers in the draft. That's going to be very hard to replace. And I'm just a little concerned with how they're going to do it. I still think they're going to be very good, but I don't know if they're at the top of the tier good.
And our next team is the Kansas Jayhawks, who bring back a lot of guys from a team that was kind of disappointing a year ago. A lot of people thought they would make a huge jump in the Big 12. They didn't quite do that. I have Kansas as a solid bowl team. I just don't see a world where Kansas football is making a huge leap like to a conference title game.
Yeah,
They do
and
only
to me
they
they
do
they
get
lost their
Kansas State at home, but they go on the road to
yeah.
Texas Tech and Iowa State and Mizzou,
It's a
and I
tough
just
shake.
yeah, I don't know.
I've got them as a bowl team as well. You return Jalen Daniels, which is awesome, but you lose Neal out of the backfield. I think that's going to be really tough to replace. And again, it's not the easiest schedule for them. And after last year, it kind of looked like they were on an upwards trajectory, and then kind of maybe more of a roller coaster. So we'll see what this year holds. But I do still think they make a bowl game.
Another team that was pretty disappointing last season was Kansas State. A lot of people had them pegged as the runaway favorites in the Big 12. I don't even know if they finished the season ranked. Avery Johnson in his first year uh, getting the full reins of the Kansas State offense, didn't really live up to his hype nearly as much, but they
He
started to
didn't.
come alive down the stretch. They have a big game against Iowa State coming up. I have them as a contender just by proxy, man. They have so much talent. They're the second highest ranked team in the Big 12. I think they're definitely up there.
See, I think I made a mistake in my rankings here because I probably should have Iowa State and K State as contenders. I have them as dark horses just because I'm a little more concerned about them, if
There's a
that
lot
makes
of
sense.
concern in the Big 12. I don't think
That's
if we were ranking these teams from like a national title contending or like
absolutely
even a lot of these teams would be
in the 15 to 20s range instead of the top 12 for
it's
sure.
the most number 18 conference ever. And I love it. I love the Big 12 in its current
It's
form.
number 18 versus number 21 every single week.
Yep.
And
And I
and
wouldn't
it's
have any other
awesome to
opinion.
watch. So I have K State as a dark horse, even though they're probably a contender. But I was huge on this team last year. I was like, Avery Johnson is awesome. They had a
I think we
great
all
running game, and he just kind of disappointed a little bit. So maybe that's why I'm a little more hesitant. I've got him as a dark horse, but again, in this conference, I think this conference is the conference where the dark horses can contend the easiest, if that makes
definitely.
sense. Yeah.
But there are some teams that won't be contending for anything this year, and that brings us to Oklahoma State, who went 3-9, 0-8 in the conference under Mike Gundy last year. Ollie Gordon came back to school, and it did not end up well for him. And Mike Gundy, has he lost control? I don't know totally yet, but I think they struggled to make a bowl game here. Is man, they just what
It was his
program,
worst year since his first one.
a program in total disarray. I think
Yeah, and it would also be the most Mike Gundy thing if this team finds a way to win 8 games.
that's true.
I think they struggle to
A
make
lot
a
of
bowl
transfer
game,
portal.
but
It'll be interesting.
yeah.
I I hope they have fun. That's what I will say about Oklahoma State football. And speaking of having fun, everyone loves the TCU Horned Frogs. Maybe I don't know, but I think they'll make a bowl game.
Yeah.
This is a team I just don't really feel very strongly about in either way. I so much like some people have to go 4-8, some people have to go 6-6. I think
They
that's
do.
TCU.
I think we're going to learn a lot about this team in their opening week matchup on the road at UNC.
Yeah,
Um, I'm not sold. I think they'll make a bowl game, but I'm not seeing that national title team we saw a
no,
couple years ago.
I don't think so either. Now a team that maybe more so than anyone else has stolen the limelight in college football this offseason, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Trying to prove that yes, you can buy a national title. I have
And
them as
not just in football, any
yeah,
sport.
any sport. I have them as just a dark horse because I still have to see them actually play football together. You can bring together everyone you want in terms of talent, but you still have to put it together on the field. And football is a sport where, there's a reason we play the games. And Texas Tech, I think, is going to feel that. They could definitely, if they could put it together, they are a dangerous, dangerous team. They play just two ranked squads all year long. They are both on the road, but man, this is a schedule and a roster that's set up well for success.
And that's why I have them as a contender.
Ooh,
I think they brought in a ton, but I saw a lot that I liked from this squad last year. And you're probably going to have some upgrades at those skill positions, especially in the trenches. But the way this team came together and really fought in a bunch of games. I mean, they get down, they get dirty, they hang in every game. They play teams tough no matter who you are, and that's one of the few teams to beat Arizona State last year. They're a feisty team, and I think that's a great mentality to have. So you probably get an upgrade in a lot of positions. You bring back your starting quarterback. I think good things could happen for Texas Tech, and then I would say it's the Big 12 or the ACC, probably the weakest power conference as a whole.
I
Again, I
think the
think there's some
ACC
really
gets a
good.
little bit of a boost due to the top end teams they have of
Yes,
Clemson and Miami and all that. But I
there's more
can't go.
middling teams here
Oh yeah,
that are good.
and
So
I think that's why both those leagues will be infinitely more fun to watch than the Big
yeah,
Ten and the SEC. But we'll get to the SEC here really quickly.
it's
We'll
real
run through
sickos.
these last three teams in the Big 12. UCF, Scott Frost is back. Does that mean the Knights are back? Not really. I think they struggle to make a bowl game in 2025. Maybe they build for the future with a couple nice wins,
Yeah,
but I just don't know about this year for them.
I don't either. I think they're going to struggle again. It's just it's tough, but the bounce house gets loud. They might welcome back their righteous king, Scott Frost, and pull up a couple upsets. I could see it, but I don't think there's a huge ceiling for this squad this year, at least. So we'll see.
Yeah. And then the Utah Utes, who I have as a dark horse, Kyle Whittingham squad, kind of massively disappointing last year. A lot of injuries took a big chunk away from their team. They get Texas Tech, Arizona State, Colorado, and Kansas State all at home this year. I think that this is a year more
Yep.
so than any where a team like Utah can go from unranked to potentially competing for a top 10 spot and a college football playoff bid. I really love Kyle Whittingham, man. I like Utah. I'm a big fan. Haven't seen enough of them with what they have to give them the contender status. I think they're a great dark horse.
I agree, and I think the best thing for this team is that Cam Rising's gone. While he was awesome, that whole injury debacle last year, it just cast a bad light on them in the media. I'm sure it was just chaos in the locker room. You're like, when's our leader coming back to play? And the answer was never. So you move on finally. You bring in Devin Dampier, who's a really cool piece at quarterback. And Whittingham just knows how to win. He knows how to build the defense. You get all those games, like you said, at home. I also have him as a dark horse, but I think they're in a position to contend if they if once we see what they're looking with. If we did a midseason update, it would not surprise me at all if Utah is one of those teams where, like, man, we felt good about them for a reason.
Yeah, I agree completely. And then our last team here, another team kind of trying to dip into nostalgia with an old head coach is West Virginia and Rich Rodriguez coming back. I think that it's an interesting move, and we'll see if it plays off, but or pays
Pays
off.
off.
I tried to mix plays out and pays off. They do
Happens,
have
man.
a kind of manageable schedule. With they only play Arizona State and Texas Tech in terms of ranked teams, and those are their last two games of the season. I just don't know if there's enough talent here for me to say anything other than I think they struggled to make a bowl.
I do too. And, West Virginia, if you didn't know, is my new home state. I might try and make it up to a Mountaineer game if I can. But I that also means I've gotten to meet a bunch of West Virginia fans. And from what I've heard, Rich Rod maybe wasn't at the top of their coaching interest. He gained a lot of traction when it was like, man, we got to hire somebody. And he had a great year at Jacksonville State. You got to give him credit for that. He really did. But I think this roster just has too much turnover. And at media days, one thing I've heard, he has said on camera he might try and play five quarterbacks. I
Oh,
want him
that's
to
good.
go ahead and try that for us, Richwad. We'll see how
Which
that
one?
turns out. I don't think so good. I think they're going to struggle at least in year one. We'll see what he can do on the recruiting trails. I think it's going to be a rough go.
And so my Big 12 conference title game picks, I'm going to have Arizona State versus Kansas State. Just going to play it a little bit safe, although I really think Utah has a shot here. I just think those are easily the two best teams in the conference in terms of talent, in terms of coaching, schedule setup, all that jazz.
You Those were the three teams I was deciding between. I'm going to go with Arizona State and Utah. I think I would trust Kyle Whittingham a little bit more than I would trust Avery Johnson and Chris Kleiman and co. At least early on, still relatively short in their tenure, at least compared to Whittingham. So I would go with the Utes and the Sun Devils as my Big 12 pick.
All right, so we'll move on to our final power conference here, the SEC, which had a little bit of a down year last year with a lot of teams having kind of middling performances in the regular season. And then it really kind of bottomed out in the bowl games and the playoff. And so,
The one thing about the SEC, JP, to me, it feels like conference wide, they have this idea that if they're not playing in the biggest of games, they don't want to play. And I don't love that. I think, unfortunately, South Carolina showed us a lot of that against Illinois. You're like,
yeah,
boy, they really don't want to be there, do they? And it sure looked like it. So
I, I,
it's,
I agree. That's kind of a thing they've had for a
yeah,
while where they were just like, well, we just didn't care about the bowl game. So Um,
Well, and then the players don't care, and it's not fun to watch, and it's a whole bunch of that, and you know it's unfortunate because a lot of those are fun teams with a lot of really fun pieces that you're going to go on and see in the NFL for a long time, and you know
and we're going to start
it's
out the SEC with a team
yeah.
that's
We'll
really
move
kind of
on.
just like that, where it's very talented, very fun, but man, coming off a bit of a down year, Alabama, man, 9-4 a season ago. Who would have thought, But
9-4. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like how
Oh
we
my
talk about
god.
Ohio State being spoiled.
Yeah,
I mean, talk about spoiled. Ty Simpson named the starting quarterback. It's I have them obviously as a contender because
I do too.
frankly, I think they're way better than a lot of other squads in the conference. But
I don't think quarterback wise, but I think you look at the rest
everywhere
of their
else,
roster, and they're
yeah.
just bigger than everyone.
And they do have a bit of a tough schedule on the road against Florida State, on the road against Georgia, on the road against a Mizzou team that I'm pretty high on the road against
Oh,
South Carolina, and on the road against Auburn, who is trying to do the Texas Tech uh, with a lot of this. But I still have Alabama as a contender because, frankly, they're Alabama and they're too talented to the point where I think Ty Simpson could definitely he could have like a Jalen Coker or um,
Jake Coker.
like sorry, I had
Yeah,
my Alabama like it was like
yeah,
a combination of Alabama quarterbacks, but I was
100%.
Blake Sims and Coker and all that, where it doesn't really matter how well he does.
I think the rest of this roster is really good. And again, Ty Simpson could prove us wrong. I think Keelan Russell, that 5-star freshman they have, is awesome. And honestly, if Simpson struggles, wouldn't surprise me if he gets the nod and just kind of dazzles. He's a guy I'm high on going forward. I think Bama's an easy contender just because they're Alabama. I know that sounds stupid, but
I
the
mean,
rest of their
yeah,
team is going to be good, man. It is
yep.
what it is.
And then moving on now to Arkansas, a team that I like. I love Sam Pittman. I think he's a great coach. I like Talon Green a lot. I like a lot of the guys they brought in, but man, the schedule is just so hard. They go to Ole Miss. They go to Memphis. They host Notre Dame. They go to Tennessee. They host Texas A&M. They host Auburn. They go to LSU. They go to Texas. They host Missouri. I mean,
It's
they could
tough.
they could be a good football team and go 6-6. And if that's not struggling to make a bowl, I don't know what is.
I think they're going to struggle to make a bowl game. As you mentioned, they've got some pieces. I like Sam Pittman, but JP, it hurts a little bit, but this could be it for him. And that's
It very
it's
much could.
sad, but that's the way football is now, and especially in the SEC, you have to win. And I don't know if Arkansas can do enough winning.
And another team that, it could be the end of the road for their head coach. It's Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers, bringing in a lot through the transfer portal and in the recruiting ranks. I don't think they've announced who their starting quarterback is going to be yet. And they do go on the road to Baylor for a very interesting week one matchup. It's a tough schedule, but I think they're a solid bowl team. I think they've brought in a lot of talent. I think their schedule sets up to where the tougher games aren't until later on the schedule, where maybe they've gelled a little bit and can spring an upset or two in those games. I think that Auburn's going to be perfectly fine. 7-5, 8-4. Is that good enough for Auburn's donors? That's what we'll have to find out.
That's the big question if they're going to give Freeze another year, because a lot of those guys they brought in are younger. I mean, Jackson Arnold, they're still kind of hoping he'll break out if he's named their starter. I have them as a bowl team, but it wouldn't surprise me if they win 8 games. It wouldn't surprise me if they win 4 games. It just kind of we'll see how it unfolds for them. But I don't think they're. I've seen some people really high on Auburn. I'm not really high on Auburn. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think putting them in like the top 15 is patently insane. And
I
that's
don't
how I
know
feel
how
about
you get that, but
That's how I feel about
it
our
could.
next team, who is actually in the top 15, the Florida Gators. What in the world? I mean, I think they'll be fine. They're going to be a solid bowl team, but what has DJ Lackway actually shown people other than throwing for like 300 yards against Samford? I
Yeah,
really don't get it. I mean, their schedule is insane anyway. So I don't get it. I don't understand where people get this idea that Florida is far and away better than some of the other middle class teams in the
yeah,
SEC.
yeah.
And
I agree with that.
I think they're being set up for failure. I think they'll still make a bowl solidly, but I don't understand what's going on there.
So I have Florida in that dark horse category, and not that I'm disagreeing with anything you said at all. I just personally like, let's say Lagway comes out and looks like an absolute monster because it could happen. Again, a lot of people, he's a huge talented prospect. We haven't seen the most from him, but Florida has also been recruiting their tails off. They've gotten a lot of impact transfers. So it'd be interesting to see if it pays off because JP, another coach that we don't know what's in store for him is Billy Napier. So, I mean, those guys are going to be putting out for him. In my opinion, they put up a lot more fight for Billy Napier last year than I would have expected. And
Yeah.
to me, that shows promise for this year. I have them as a dark horse. I think they make a bowl game. I'm not sure what the ceiling is for that team, but that's not a bad thing inherently. You want to not know what you can achieve. Just go out there and play it on week by week and see what you can do. I could see something good happening, but I don't know how good.
Yeah, and we'll move on to a pretty safe bet. It's the Georgia Bulldogs here. I'm interested to see if they lose a lot from last year. I mean, everyone, is kind of taking a dump on Carson Beck, and he didn't play great, but Gunnar Stockton is so young, and I'm interested to see how
Very
he
inexperienced.
after an off season where he is the guy. And frankly, he gets thrown into the fire. I mean, after Marshall and Austin Peay, they go on the road to Tennessee, then they play Alabama, and if Gunnar Stockton isn't up to par, I mean, what reality are Georgia fans okay with starting 2-2? I'm not saying it happens. I'm not saying it even might happen. But if he doesn't play too well, things could get really out of hand for Georgia fans. I still have them as a contender. I think obviously they get Alabama and Texas at home after playing them on the road last year. They get Ole Miss at home as well. I think that Georgia's going to be just
It's the
fine.
same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing we said about Bama. They might have some quarterback struggles, some growing pains. They're too good everywhere else. And JP, we've hit the 10-minute warning.
I know.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna let's go. No tempo or no huddle.
No huddle.
Tempo,
Speaking
tempo.
of which, Kentucky, no, no, no,
No,
no.
yeah,
They're
they're
not
gonna
going to.
struggle big time.
Someone has to go 2-10, and it's going to be Zach Calzada in Kentucky. Moving on, I have LSU as a dark horse, and I'm kind of regretting that as we talk because I realize they're probably more in line with a contender spot. We just need to see it. You know what I mean? Like we need to see
We
them
saw their
go.
offense. I
We need
want
to
to
see
see
the
what this if this
defense.
defense can
Yeah.
improve because Nussmeier's one of the best, probably one of the best in the country. So I mean, that guy can flat out sling it. Um,
Also, they're
it
0-4 in week one under Brian Kelly, I believe, and so they got to get off to a good start to be a true contender. I feel like.
Yeah, for South Carolina fans, week one is a nightmare up here. You're like, ew, I hate LSU and Brian Kelly. Oh, but it's Clemson, and it's it's a nightmare to try and pick which team you want to lose there.
Exactly. I mean, I'll be there, and I'm just going to revel in the fact that everyone there probably hates Brian
Hey,
Kelly.
take videos for BDL too.
Oh, don't worry.
Yeah,
BDL two. This isn't a one-off thing, folks. It's going to
hit
stay.
show
It
BDL
might.
two.
It might go off the rails even more so than it already has. Speaking of
Yep,
teams that are going to struggle to make a bowl, Mississippi State.
they're going to
Rest in
be
peace,
bad.
Mike Leach. It's not their fault their coach died, but it is
It's
their fault that
oh,
they're
it
bad
is
at
so sad.
football, and they're just
Yeah,
they're just not going to make a bowl. But moving on from Mississippi State, the Missouri Tigers, Spencer, they might have one of the sneakiest defenses in football. They lose a lot of guys on offense. No Brady Cook, no Luther Burden, no Nerlens Noel at running. Not Nerlens Noel, that's a basketball player. Nate Noel at running
Nate
back.
Noel. Yeah,
Um, but Bo Pribula at quarterback, the transfer from Penn State, and their defense, they have the easiest schedule in the SEC. I think the only ranked teams they play are South Carolina, Alabama, who are at home, A&M, who is at home, and then Oklahoma on the road. But I mean, that's as easy as this conference schedule can get in this league. And I think Mizzou's a true dark horse to make it to the SEC title game.
I like where your head's at. For me, I just want to see Prabula play a little bit more football, a little bit more impact football. I have them as a bowl team. I think they do have upside, especially on the defensive end, but they're going to have to find a way to score. And I think it's going to be a little tough because not only did they lose all those skill guys, they lost Mimbu, who they could just throw at people and slide the line. And it was tough to go up against that guy.
Yeah, and speaking on that Missouri schedule, they play an Oklahoma team that is kind of shockingly ranked after going, I think, 6-7. They brought in kind of a massive transfer portal class headlined by Jaden Ott at running back and John Mateer at quarterback, along with Wazoo's head coach, I believe, leaving to become the offensive coordinator under Brent Venables, which is just insane. Um, I have them as a bowl team. I still think that I don't know if Venables is really head coach caliber. Their offensive line was really terrible last year. They're going to have to be a little bit better this year. Not sure if they will be.
I love John Mateer, so I have this team as a dark horse. I mean, I it's going to be interesting. We're going to have to see it unfold, but I think they could really find something there. I mean, you also you bring over Jaden Ott. Oklahoma's always had a lot of talent on the receiving end. We know Venable's scheme is good. Can this defense really turn into what it was at Clemson, or at least somewhere in that realm to keep this team playing winning football? We'll see. I think it could happen. I don't know what the
I think
ceiling is for this
they're on the
team, but
higher end of like a bowl team. They just play so many
yeah,
ranked squads. I'm just hesitant.
yeah,
The team I'm hesitant about, Ole Miss. I'm not really sure how
big
they
time.
snuck into the AP top 25 for the preseason. I think they're just a bowl team. I think this is going to be Lane Kiffin's weakest squad offensively. Their defense is going to be good, but that's not what he's known for. And so
I
I just
like
think
Austin Simmons, but again, he's a freshman. He's going to be coming into a very tough conference with very tough front sevens. Um, I think he might struggle a little bit. I agree with you. I think last year, I think it was it for Ole Miss. They
yeah.
really had to get it done, and they choked big time in some big games. So I think they're a bowl team this year.
And then our former school, the South Carolina Gamecocks,
Alumnus.
and South Carolina alumnus, we're going to talk about the Gamecocks. And frankly, when you have a quarterback as good as Lenore Sellers, I think you kind of have to be
Contender.
talking.
Contender.
No, no. They've lost so much on defense. I can't call them a contender. I do think they can be a dark horse, though. Really fun offense, especially if Russell Faison is cleared by the NCAA to play. It's a schedule that kind of sets up nicely. You get a lot of your tougher games like Clemson and Alabama at home. I think South Carolina's a dark horse, man.
I have them as a contender, and I know that sounds crazy, but I think that the top tier of the SEC is just it's not what it has been previously. Go on and get that bling on, baby. Just and really the sole reason I'm doing this is because Lenoris, I think, is going to win South Carolina so many games. Just being unstoppable. I think it has to be the year for Nick Harbor, right? You got to find more ways to get him involved.
Skipped track to
Yep.
focus on football.
You got to
And
teach him to be a pro. Dylan Stewart is going to come back and be a menace. I think the Gamecocks can be a contender, whether they will be or not. I think we'll find out week one. They have really been slow to start in recent years. I think they got to go out, and frankly, I think they have to dominate VT, and I think it could happen.
I
That's what
think
I
it could
want to see.
happen too. And we'll move on now to another team that South Carolina is used to playing, but won't this year because of the horrible realigned schedules. It's the Tennessee Volunteers, who had a little bit of a tumultuous offseason, but I'm kind of regretting I put them as just a bowl team. I think they could honestly be a dark horse because their
I've got
defense
them
is
at
going to
dark
be.
horse.
I love Joey Aguilar. He is the prototypical gunslinger type quarterback. I think Tennessee, they have a schedule that sets up rather nicely with getting games against Florida and Georgia both at home. I think now they go on the road to Florida, but I don't know, man. I think they'll be on the upper end of just a bowl team, but maybe losing so much of their defense from last year might hold them back a little bit.
It might, but honestly, I think they outperformed our expectations last year defensively. So to me, it's like, hey, maybe they do it again. I mean, this was a really good scheme. Teams really had trouble scoring against them. And as you saw from a couple of years ago, that was not the case, which shows they're making strides on that end of the ball. I think Tennessee's a dark horse team. I think a lot of this rests on Aguilar's shoulders, and we'll see what he can do.
And then our final three
Two
teams
minute
here.
drill.
Yeah, final three teams here for the 2 minute drill is the Texas A&M Aggies. Marcel Reed's first full season as a starting quarterback. I think they're just going to be a bowl team. I like them. They have a tough schedule, and frankly, I don't know, man. Something about A&M, they just have to prove it to me.
I
You know,
agree. I have them as a dark horse, but we'll have to see. I like Mike Elko. Um, and again, they recruit so well every year. One time, I'm not going to have more faith than that dark horse tier.
yeah.
Again, that's kind of what it's for.
They're very talented, but the schedule is brutal for them. So we'll see what they can do. Um, Here's a team I don't think we're going to be too
Chipper,
conflicted
Chipper,
on. Texas Longhorns are a contender.
contender,
Like
big time.
Arch Manning, I mean, they return almost everybody. They're like you said, there may not teams that are more complete than Penn State and Clemson. Texas is right up there. We'll know.
Top
We'll
five.
know. We'll know about them instantaneously on Big Noon Kickoff when they play against Ohio State. Not much more we need to say about them. That's going to be a
We have
star-studded
no more
matchup.
time to say about them.
Yeah, yeah.
Vanderbilt,
Our last
rounding
team,
it out.
Vanderbilt, not they're going to struggle to make
Bolte.
a bowl.
Oh,
I
I
think they
said
struggle.
Bolte.
I don't know. I think that just kind of maybe they used up all the magic last year.
Totally
Someone,
could happen.
I think they'll be better than Kentucky and Mississippi State and probably Arkansas, but I think they're teetering between 6 and 7, 5 wins, somewhere
Oh,
in that
that would
range.
be like a good season for them. So
So that's good to do from us here at Ball
wait,
Don't
wait,
Lie 2. Oh, oh,
title predictions, real quick. I would
uh,
say LSU, Texas.
Texas versus LSU. Yeah, I agree. Um,
That's awesome. PDL too.
too. See you then. We'll be back at some point. We're going to talk about maybe
Sports.
movies, sports or movies, or maybe
Sports
video
and
games.
movies.
I don't know. We have no oversight anymore. They lost
Nope.
control.
We're free.